Hello, everybody. Welcome to LA Times. This is Big Paul. We got a special guest today. We got Mike Sandoval, aka Mikey, formerly from West Side La Habra, Tiny Locals. Is that right, Mike?
Yes.
All right, Mike. We're going to break down his story today. In case you don't know, La Habra, specifically Barrio La Habra, and to more specifically, West Side La Habra is an old neighborhood in Orange County, one of the oldest. It used to be full of orange fields and campos, and orange pickers used to be here back in the day, and home of the Gabrielino Indians, and all kinds of history here, both bad and criminal. Mike, you could say, has lived on both sides of that. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, Mike. First we want to get to is where and how did you grow up as a kid?
I grew up right here in La Habra. I was born in La Mirada in 1982. I grew up right here in La Habra as a kid with my grandma and my dad. My mom had left us as a kid due to heroin addiction, but my dad stuck with it, and even though he was young and he was from Avada himself, he was actually from the east side. And growing up like that, he did his thing too, but he also tried to lead us the right way. He tried to put us in sports and try to teach us what not to do, but I guess at the same time doing it himself, but kind of telling us not to do it. But he was, to me, he was a good role model. Others might say different, but that's my take on it. He was always there for me, no matter what I was into or what I was doing. He was always there.
Yeah, and then La Habra, at the time you were growing up, I'm sure like all of us, we all ran around the streets as kids and everything, but could you tell us about La Habra? I mean, it had a strong criminal element back in the day, probably one of the most numerous gang members in North Orange County, one of the biggest. Can you tell us about the streets of La Habra at that time?
Yeah, the streets of La Habra in the 90s, that's when I started, messing around with gangs. They were always prominently there at school and everywhere you went, but it was always just friends, and it wasn't really a gang, I guess, element. It was just more of a friend element. But when it comes to that, gangbang is involved, and you do have a choice if you're gonna get in, or you're gonna stay on the sidelines, or what you're gonna do. And I chose to get in. And in the 90s, it was real rough in La Habra. Gangs were everywhere. We were the prominent. We were the biggest gang in La Habra with many cliques. I was a youngster at that time, and it didn't take too long though before the criminal element started getting in. There was numerous shootings, numerous murders, numerous everything in the 90s. La Habra was a very, very hot spot.
Yeah, I know La Habra, you had different gangs. You had the Peewees, Enanos, Chicos, I mean, Tiny Locos, Chiquitas. I mean, I could go on and on. And then later
Right.
on, you had the Monos, which at that time were like more Mexicanos, but now they're more Chicanos. Later on, like, getting in modern times, you have the Campo. But then you had the original camp, which were the West Siders. So you grew up in all that. So it's almost like you're going to go two ways. You're either going to be a gang member or not, man. It was a rough time, especially when you know La Habra. Like I said, everybody's campos, everybody's related. Everybody, it's a city 4x4, 4 miles by 4 miles, but loaded with gang members. So I almost hate to ask you, it's evident, but eventually you became a gang member, bro. Why? Why did you become a gang member, and then what was the influences that led you that way?
Well, I became a gang member just because those were my friends. And at the time, I used to hang around with the older crew. Everybody was older than me. I was always the youngest. I was always the smallest. And where I grew up at my house, from my house, it was actually a hop, skip, and a jump to your left. to Ward Street, which is considered East Side La Habra, and not too far to the right was all the West Siders. And growing up, the dudes from Ward Street, which is actually an enemy gang, but actually where I grew up in their territory, they used to mess with me when I was younger. And my dad is a OG, from the East Side. So, I used to look at that and be like, man, these dudes show no respect. Even though I was young, I still had that, mentality of respect and disrespect, and they used to show disrespect. And so I went the other way, and I used to hang around a lot of older dudes. Like I said, I was always out of my element. I was always the youngest one. I was always the smallest one. And when I got jumped in, of course I was a minor. And it's crazy because now thinking back at it, all the dudes that jumped me in were older. They were at least 18 and over. Um, and yeah, that's basically how I got in, and it evolved, very, very rapidly and very, very quickly. And drugs were always you know, heavily involved as well, all the time.
And then Mike, how did your dad feel when you going into the rival neighborhood and again, like you went to the west side, which was the biggest side. The Ward Street was smaller. Like,
Right.
what led you to go to the west side and not go to your dad's side? Was your dad disappointed?
He was very, very disappointed. My dad has always been, Billy Bad Butt, right? Growing up. And I looked at him as such. And I still, even though he's older and more frail today, I still look at him the same. He's, he's that guy. And I remember one time as a youngster, and he was chilling with some guy from Brown Brotherhood. He was our neighbor. So they're chilling, kicking back, drinking. And the, you know, the guy was telling my dad in front of me, like, hey, do you know your son's a West Sider? And my dad put his beard down. He must have been pretty buzzed. And he was like, is that right, Mule? You're a West Sider? And I told him, yeah, Dad. And he just went off. He said, do you know how many wars and how much bloodshed? And I understand all that, and I do. A lot of his friends, got killed during those times. And, I had nothing to say, but that it is what it is. But yeah, he was very disappointed. Very disappointed.
Yeah, as you entered that life you're in now, did you have to get jumped in? And if so, could you tell us that day?
I did have to get jumped in, and we were actually up here on Second Street and Cypress, and I was just chilling with there's a family there, a pretty big family, a lot of brothers, and I was chilling with them, and they finally asked me like, "What's up? Do you want to get jumped in?" And I said, "Yeah," and basically that's where it went down, right there in the little parking lot. Um, it was actually like just not a parking lot, just where people would park for the apartments right there. So yeah.
I think I know exactly where you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
And the family you're talking
And the
about.
family, right,
It's a
right.
big family here.
Yeah.
So time goes on. Time goes on. As you're now officially a gang member, man, you start. Who were your enemies, and what was the first dealings with them?
The enemies were, of course, the east side, but it was kind of dying out already. The east side was already dying out already, and they were kind of transitioning to a gang called War Street, which is on the east side, and the Monos were the enemies, and the Campo, they're old as well, and they were the enemies. And um, I remember going with one of my homeboys. He was a little older than me, and we went to a street where the Monos were heavily at that time, and we went with the bike, and we went, with a couple, nothing too heavy artillery, but we went, with a couple guns, and we went in our bikes, and we saw a party, and we made sure that it was a gang and not just a family partying, and yeah, and we let off. And basically that was one of my um one of the first times I pulled the trigger.
Wow. Wow. So I'm sure as you got in, you got to know all the different gangs on the west side. People don't know on the west side of La Habra there's many gangs, but they're all united. Sometimes there's some internal conflict. But usually it gets straightened out, man. So, man, what kind of stuff did you see? What did you see the other gangs doing? And man, just was it havoc back then, or in your heyday? We'll get to everything else you're doing now. But like, man, how was those times, brother?
It was, and a lot of those times, looking back at it, it was straight crazy. It was chaos, it was crazy. But at the time, I loved it. At the time, I loved it. At the time, I didn't want nothing else except to be in it. At the time, back then, there was weekends where we would have party on the whole street. And we would just go from house to house to house like block parties. And all the homeboys and all the homegirls, they would be there. And I think what I loved most about it was you could see that there was real. Well, at the time, I felt like a real bond, a real love, a real cariño with everybody. Whatever you need, don't trip. I got it. You need something, whatever it was. And that mixed with drugs and partying and drinking, it was just, to me, that was the life. And that was kind of the downside, like where you could, um I guess, take your hat off, and chill and party. So those were the heydays. Those were the times that I remember was like, wow, it was a trip, because you used to be able to, you know party anywhere you wanted, on the street, and the whole street is basically gang members. But at the time, you don't look at it as gang members. You look at it as they're your friends. And but you got to be ready once you go back out there into the street and roam around on your bike. Back then, of course, I was a minor, didn't drive, stole a lot of cars, but I didn't own one. So the bike, the beach cruiser or whatever it was I was riding, was always the best way to go. And you had to be strapped back then. There was no, oh, I forgot it at home type of thing, because at the time the mentality was, it's better to get caught with one than without one, because if you get caught with one, you might go to juvenile hall, you might do 60, 90 days, whatever it was. But if you get caught with that one, by an enemy, that could be your life.
Yeah, it's crazy. Knowing about La Habra, for those of you out there who don't know, it's a wild city. It's on the corner of LA and Orange County. It's where Whittier Boulevard basically ends in La Habra. And on one side, La Habra, although it's separated by some hills, on one side, on the left side, you got South Side Whittier, you got East Side Winter Park, you got Fullerton, Tokerstown, and then on one side you got kind of the east side La Habra. Then over the hill you got La Puente and all those gangs and stuff like that. Did you guys ever have dealings or beef with the other cities around, or was it strictly La Habra internal war?
At the time, it was strictly La Habra internal war, because we didn't really know nothing else except La Habra. I didn't really learn about enemies in this city or that city until I started going to actually a real good a gang that we used to be real close to, was La Jolla. So when we would go over there to their neighborhood, we had all reigns to their neighborhood, and they kind of had it with ours. We were real close like that. So we would go over there, and they would kind of tell us, like, watch out for these people, watch out for these people, watch out for these people. And then once I really started going to juvenile hall, that's when I would learn about you know enemies that were all over, the north side of Orange County, which I didn't really know before. I just knew my city, and I didn't really go out of it unless it was to the city drive. For you guys that don't know what the city drive is, that's either Juvenile Hall or the county jail.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. So talking about the history of La Habra and La Jolla, people ask on this channel, they want to know because they know one of the guys on this channel, Joker, is from La Jolla. So the history of La Habra and La Jolla, for those of you just briefly, it goes beyond Mike's time.
Yeah,
It's way back.
definitely.
Families, even in the old Campo days, we're talking the 50s, 60s, 40s. There was families. There were orange fields and milk and cows over there. We were orange fields, so the families knew each other, married each other, and it just happened so later on that a lot of the gangs you talked about that you met in Juvenile Hall, a lot of the gangs like the Enanos and the Chicos that came before the Pee-wees and the Tiny Locos, they had beef with Fullerton and everything. So as the time of the Pee-wees, the Tiny Locos, and everybody came, a lot of that war had simmered down, and it was more internal with the Pee-wees starting a lot of the internal wars with everybody, and then La Jolla, La Jolla just having, all that history, all that love, mutual family members. It was just a trip to see how it ignited and the love came between all the gang members, and even I remember even in the 80s, late 80s and 90s, probably before you were even banging, there was already a mutual respect with La Habra and La Jolla, with Joker and Rolo and all these guys, So it was a trip, man. There was a bond there. So you said you went to Juvenile Hall?
Yeah, I started going to Juvenile Hall like right after I started kicking it with the neighborhood. I started getting busted right away. I started going to Juvenile Hall, and after my first time at Juvenile Hall, it didn't stop. I wasn't the type to do a couple months and get out here and do a couple years on probation, or even 6 months out here. I would be locked up for a couple months, and Pinos and Joplin, those are the Orange County camps that we had back then. They're not around no more, but those are the ones that they would send us to do our sentence in Juvenile Hall. Is like a camp to try to, I guess, have you go to school, have you try to do good, have you, get your credits for high school, and so be it. But after I started going to Juvenile Hall, it didn't, like, I would go for 3 months or 6 months and get out, for like a week and go right back. And that cycle continued for a couple years until they finally got tired of me and sent me to the California Youth Authority.
Okay, so let's stop at Juvenile Hall real quick. How was it in there? Did you see other guys from La Habra and enemies? And if so, how was that?
I did. It was, I would see, a few homeboys here and there, but mostly it was enemies. Most of the time it was enemies, and pretty much you're just fighting. You're just fighting all the time. It becomes, a way of life where it ain't no thing. You just fight. That's basically what it is. It's the same routine over and over. Hey homie, where you from? And this your neighborhood, and you're fighting. You get pepper sprayed, shower you off, and right back to yourself. It's basically that's what the get down was.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Why'd you go to Youth Authority? What was the crime?
I went to Youth Authority. They basically threw the book at me, right? And I actually went from San Bernardino County. I was out there. My mom was over there, and I went to go chill with her for. I was trying to actually like evade probation, and just try to shake the system. But I went over there, and I got busted over there, and they considered it like throwing the book at me, and I got busted over there for an assault.
Man.
Yeah.
So walking up to Youth Authority, was it a different animal than Juvenile Hall?
It was juvenile hall times 100. Um, but there was a lot more. I guess everybody thought they were older there. Where in juvenile hall, where everybody knew they were young and stupid. And YA, driving up to YA, it's just a different, like you said, a different animal, a different beast, and it's really like, you get in these situations, and it keeps. And once you learn about like the rules, and there's a lot of rules in YA. Oh man, so many, right? And once you learn them, you find yourself really, the rules that you said, oh man, this is stupid, that's dumb, why this. After a while, you find yourself really, um, now you're the one enforcing them. Everybody's enforcing them now. You're really, uh, you're enforcing the rules that you first thought, that were stupid. And a lot of them are righteous. They're just about respect, and respect your boundaries, respect other people. But a lot of other ones, they were off the wall. Like, don't eat the red apples or something like that. Just because, like I said, that was the beast of the moment. And I went in, actually. I only went in with, I think, 13 months, but I had a max amount of 5 years. It's different. From YA in state prison, YA is still under the old law of prison, where no matter how much time you're doing, you have to go to board to get let out, right? And that's why when I was in YA, that was still the law that they were under. So I actually went only with 13 months, and I ended up maxing out and doing 5 years because of everything that I was involved in. And I remember, um, I was in the reception center of SRCC. That's the reception center for YA. It's right here in Norwalk. And I remember my dad coming to visit me. And he came, and like I said, every time that I was in juvenile hall, every time that I was busted, my dad was always my the faithful, the one that was always there. He was always writing me, visiting me. He would tell me like, man, I don't know if I had warrants or not, but I came. And it didn't matter to him if he got busted or whatever it was. He would come and see me. And he came to see me my first visit in Norwalk, and he pulled me out, and he told me straight up, like, how much time do you got, Mijo? You're in the kind of the big leagues now. You're in the minor leagues. You're not in the big leagues yet, but you're not, in single A, double A no more. You're in the minor leagues. Um, how much time are you gonna do? And even though I had a release date of like 13 months later or something, I told him, I'm gonna do 5 years. And he told me, just don't tell me you're gonna come home in 3 years and not come home. I told him that I'm gonna come home in 5 years. That's all I needed to hear. That's all I wanted to know. And so, I kind of gave myself that leeway to keep on messing up, and to keep on doing what I was doing. It wasn't gonna stop, especially in YA. That's when, I guess you shine your best, I guess, as a young gang member, fighter, with the business, I guess.
And so take me back to your first day. You get to wherever you're going, your first place. I don't know, where was it? Where'd you go after Norwalk?
I went to Paso Robles.
So you go to Paso Robles. Tell me about your first few days. Like, did you right away get hooked up with your homies from OC, or how was it in there? And then tell us about after that. Was there infighting with the South, and then was there fighting with the Norteños, or what?
Okay, I went to my first institution I hit in YA is called Paso Robles, right? El Paso de Robles. It's like Central California, San Luis Obispo area. And I remember getting there off the bus, and I remember a few homies, that I was always in juvenile hall with. There were always, faces that I would see. Lazy from King Street, Animal from Greenleaf, Huntington Beach, um, not Greenleaf, Amberleaf. You know, and I would always see these guys in Juvenile Hall, and now they're there too, you know. And we drive up to like a reception center inside of, you know, like orientation. And I remember getting off the bus, and right away, you know, Orange County has always been tight, you know, even as kids like that. Right away, you know, I get off the bus, you know, different homies from the county come and introduce themselves, and they tell me. And I remember going to the chow hall for the first time. I go to the chow hall and I see my first Sally in that I went to juvenile hall. My first Sally, he was from Littletown. They called him Little Man from Littletown, right? And no, Little Joe from Littletown. And he goes, "Oh man, what's up? You made it, you know, like if it was a big thing." I was like, "Yeah." And he's, "Okay, I'll shoot you, you know, I'll shoot you the rundown later." And so it was kind of just like a reunion, you know, as crazy as it might seem. You know, it was just a reunion of young gang members, young, you know, young dudes with the business, you know. And I remember getting there, and I remember my first incident. I was on the phone, and I was calling my homeboy Petey, right? And I was trying to get in contact with them through some girl, and I remember being on the phone with the girl, getting ready to talk to him, and some guy behind me, you know, he was a different race, and he tried to phone check me, and basically he was just trying to test me, you know. And the rules at that time were, if you get down with another race, you could get down 1-on-1. You could fight 1-on-1. But once you hit the floor, he hits the floor, and feet start coming out, that's when, you know, the whole thing busts into a riot. But I remember getting into it with him, and he went to his cell, and I ran in his cell. And I remember running in his cell, getting him up, and the cops were like right after us. It seemed like they got there quick, you know, and that was my first incident. And it was Unit Arroyo in El Paso Robles.
Man, did you guys so you get in there, whatever, was there norteños? And no, not that
No, no, not El Paso Robles. There was no norteños, no bulldogs. It was just yeah, no, there was none.
there was none. So
Mm-mm.
did you ever go anywhere in the YA that where you ran into them, or was it always they kept them separate at that time?
They kept them separate. They kept them separate because, you know, years prior to this, you know, of course they have like little seasons where they would throw them in and see what happens, and but there's way too much influence from the state, you know, from prison that goes into YA. You know, because of course, you know, when we talk about generations upon generation, you know, if you're a gang member, you know, most likely your little brother's gonna be a gang member, you know, and once you hit prison, he's gonna be in YA, or something like that. Your little primo, you know, your cousin, your big cousin, however it is, and some way through the wires, you know, it's gonna get back to them. Like, look, this is the get down up here. You guys need to follow suit, you know, and being a more than eager, you know, to listen to, you know, to listen to your family, you know, more than eager to listen to the homies, you're gonna, you know, follow suit.
Yeah, trip out, man. And then so you go through YA. Did you ever hit the state prisons of California? And if so, how was that?
I did actually. I did in YA. I did from 1998, and I got out in 2003. I got out in 2003, and I continued to, you know, do a little time in here and there. And in 2005, actually, I caught a case, and I caught a string of armed robberies and with gang enhancements. And so I was in the county jail. I was fighting 52 to life, and I fought it for about a year and a half. And every time I went to court, they were saying, "No deal, no deal, you're going to get washed up." And I was still young, you know, I was about 21, 22 at the time. Um, about to turn 23. And, you know, they're coming at me with all this time, and I'm like, man, you know, what's this all about? So I fought it until, and everybody around me, everybody that's been to prison. At this time, I hadn't been to prison yet. And everybody around me was like, man, if they come at you with the deal, you better take it. So they came at me. I was about to pick jury, whenever you're fighting a case and the day you pick jury, from there on out, it's like, it's real now. It's getting real. And but that's also the time that they're gonna come at you with like the best offers. Because they don't want to go to trial, they don't want to spend money, the time and effort it takes to put someone in trial it's a lot. People don't realize it, but it's a lot of money, it's a lot of people that are doing jury duty, time off work, taxpayers money, so they really don't want to take you to trial. But so they came at me with 17 years 4 months, and I took it. I jumped on it quick. My brother was in prison at the time. My mom was in prison at the time. Um, so, and my dad's just on the outside, like, man, I really hope this goes good. And my brother was writing me from the joint, and he was telling me, like, look, if they come at you with 20 years, so I always had that number in my mind, 20 years. If they come at me with 20 years, I'm going to take it. And they came at me with 17 years, so, I hopped on it quick. And they couldn't sentence me that day for some reason, and I thought they were playing me because, my lawyer had me sign the plea agreement, and basically they revoked the plea that day because it was too late in the day. And I'm like, wait a minute, I basically told the judge already that I'm guilty, and not really knowing too much in depth about the law at the time, I just thought they were trying to play me. And I went to court the next day, and the offer got better. I had already, signed it. I didn't have to sign again, but it got somewhere along the lines, the time that they were trying to add up the 17 years, it didn't add up, and I guess it was against the law, so they gave me 12 years, and I was like, okay, even better, and they gave me 12 years with 2 years credit, so I had 10 to go. I was happy, and so yeah, so that's when I went.
What was the charge, and what was the charge?
A string of armed robberies and gang enhancements.
Wow. Were you doing them yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were writing solo, or?
No. I did a few by myself and a few with different homeboys, but at the time, the cops were trying to insinuate that I did it with this person, did it with that person, and I wasn't going for the okey doke, and I just basically said, I did all these myself. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know these people. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't have no crimes. So yeah.
So you drive up to prison. Obviously, you go through reception.
Yeah.
You get to where you're going. What was your first joint, and how was that? How was that? And again, did you ride with OC? And then what was going on in the yard, man?
Yeah. So I drive up to Wasco State Prison. I rolled up to D Yard, right? And at this time, D Yard was it was slammed down for some reason. We were on lockdown for some reason. I didn't really see no sunlight at the time. It was all, self-feeding, no day room, no yard. And after about, a month and a half, couple months, the AR, that was DR. So AR, if you were getting lucky, they were going to send you to AR. So AR was half reception, and the other half was just, regular, like, I think it was like a level 3 RGP. So we would feed them. So we were like basically the crew that would work, right? And that would be our reception center. So I got lucky, and I went to AR, and we had like, I think reception had like 3 buildings, and mainline had like 2, I think 2, and they were like the workers for the rest of the joint, for rest of Wasco. So I liked it. It was cool, it was cool. I just couldn't wait to get into, on a regular main line with my regular blues, because being in those oranges is like, man, you don't got nothing, you're kind of just just going with the flow until whatever yard you go to, and then I finally get my Transpac bag, and I remember I got my bag and it had a big old CTF on it. I'm like, what's CTF? And at the time, my points were 48. I remember clear as day because, I got, they really did a number on me. I had 48 points, and that was level 3 borderline. And I roll up so I went to Soledad. I went to the North Yard at the time. This was in 2006, right? I went to the North Yard, and I was there for about a week, maybe a week and a half. I'm over there trying to find me a celly, from the area, because that's usually, the get downs on the lower levels. I was kind of getting schooled to, like you said, the OC boys and everything like that. And the day I found me a good celly, they told me I had to go back to committee. And usually, I had already been to committee. Right after you get to a joint, you usually got to go to committee for them to clear you for yard. It's just the routine you go through. Clear you for yard, clear you for this, clear you for this, clear you for that. So and and they came and tell me I had to go to committee again, and I was like, why? I already went to committee, so I'm asking, the homies there, like, hey, what's why would I be going to committee again? And everybody's like, man, I don't know, something must be wrong with your points or your file or something, right? Like, okay, well, I don't think of nothing, but okay. So I went to committee, and they tell me they're giving me 50 more points. And I'm like, what? For what? And they said that all the write-ups that I had in YA, it's following me. And I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. So now I got, you know, near 100 points, and I gotta go to a 4 yard now, and I gotta go to the hole. As a matter of fact, I gotta go to the hole because now I'm a threat to a level 3 yard. Now I have almost 100 points, and that's level 4, and you can no longer be on a level 3 yard. You're a threat to the yard, and I'm like, what? It's like I barely got to prison. How am I a threat to prison? I barely got to prison. How am I a threat to the yard? And I tried to argue my way out of it, and they were like, no, you need to go to the hole right now. And there was a lieutenant there. He was kind of seasoned. He's been around for a long time. And there was a counselor, and they wanted to actually cuff me up right there in the office and escort me to the hole. And I kind of jumped up like, you're not taking me from here, because all my homies are on the yard. I'm not walking out of here. And at the time, it was like, a lot of people were, I guess you could say, they were locking it up, right? To be blunt, right? They were locking it up. They were going PC. They're going SNY, for whatever reason, right? So I knew that if I walked, even though there was nothing wrong with my case, but I told the lieutenant, I'm not walking out of here unless, like I'm going in with some pepper spray, at least let me go back to the yard, explain to the homies, and that I'm going to the hole. And because I was fresh to the yard, so I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was new to prison. So the lieutenant was like, I get you, man, I get you, I understand, yeah, that's cool. So I went, I got out of the office. I went and told one of the homies on the yard, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this happens all the time." Me not knowing, like, because I'm kind of like nervous. What are they gonna think, and are they gonna run my name through the mud? And little did I know it happens all the time. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went to the hole. I stayed in the hole for like 4 or 5 months just to get a bed in a level 4 yard. And yeah, I went to Kern Valley State Prison.
Man, was there anybody from your hood there or anybody from OC
In
level 4?
Soledad?
In the level 4?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't. No, not at that time. There wasn't. I would hear different names here and there. Hey, do you know your homeboy this? Yeah. But there wasn't nobody there. I went to Kern Valley State Prison, 8 yard at the time. This was like end of 06, 07.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Was there already the gangs like called the 2 Fivers and stuff like that? Were those guys already around or no?
We didn't hear it. Like, we didn't hear it as much. I just knew that, the homies were telling me that a lot of people are going PC, and, for whatever reason on their own, the SNY yards, and, just to watch out, because when we were in the hole, So that's kind of where I got laced up when I was in Soledad Hall. We had group yard, all the homies, and they would kind of lace me up about, these new PC gangs, and to watch out because they will get you. Okay, so I mean, I guess they were around, but very, very. You didn't hear them as much as towards the end of my term.
So if somebody asked you what was the craziest thing you ever seen in prison, what was the craziest thing or the most violent thing you ever seen in prison?
Oh man, stabbings. A lot of stabbings, man. A lot of stabbings. I remember. I actually remember my first stabbing that I saw on the yard, and um, one that I actually saw with my own eyes. Because you would come in from yard, and you would hear, oh, someone got whacked out there, someone got whacked. But the first one that I actually saw was, was right there in New Delano, and one of the homies from the area, as a matter of fact, he came and pulled me to the side. He's like, "Hey, just step over here, step over here and watch that way." Okay. And I watched that way, and some guy was getting whacked. He was an older dude, tall, skinny, and he was getting whacked by something like the size of a ruler. And I was like, man, that's like, how do they? I was thinking to myself, how do they even like get that out here? But yeah, it was homie on homie, basically two homies on another homie, and they were just blasting him. And I remember when they blasted him in the neck, it started squirting, with every heart, beat. It seemed like it was just squirting and squirting, and honestly, it made me sick to my stomach. It did. It really made me sick to my stomach. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then what was crazier is that when I asked, why did the homie, I had to ask the right person though, because I'm new to the joint. I just don't want to go around just asking questions, but I was curious, hey, why did the homie get whacked? And he owed a drug debt. I was like, wow. So that's what happens, huh?
That's crazy,
Okay.
man.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Did you guys or the OC car when you were with them? Did they ever have to put in work, or did you have a pretty steady ride?
No, well, I kind of raised my hand right when I got there. I knew that I wasn't a lifer, and that's basically on those yards. It's basically all lifers. So I knew that I was gonna put in work, one way or another, and I just kind of wanted it. I kind of wanted it to get out of the way because I used to look at homies' paperwork, and I would see on there like attempted murder on a inmate, or assault, battery on an inmate with a weapon, or see, that they would put in work, and it would kind of like, man, I want that, I want that. So, I wasn't there. I think I was there in that joint for like only 4 months, and yeah, I went on my first mission.
That's crazy, man. And right now, for those of you listening, it could sound like we're boasting or telling a war story, but the reason is we're getting to something. This is his life story. Everybody has a testimony, right? We're getting to where we need to be, where you are now. But there's something that comes along in the joint, you know? There's something that comes along. Eventually, you start doing time, start making those collect calls. People start forgetting about you, even your own homies. Those collect calls are not accepted. People stop writing, people stop sending money. You start to realize that you're alone, kind of. You might have your family doesn't leave you, but your homies. You thought they were loyal. Did you go through that? Did that happen to you at any state during your from YA to prison?
It did, and I'll be the first one to say that I'm guilty of that too. You know, I love my homies, and I'm not afraid to say it. You know, I do. I just would like them to have a better way now. You know, and I'll be the first one to say that I'm guilty of when my homeboys would get locked up and go away. I'll be the first one to say that I am guilty of not picking up a pen, or not going to see his jefita, or not going to drop something out for his family. You know, I'll be the first one that that admits that I'm part of that. You know, I'll be the first one to say that I'm guilty of that. You know, and everybody's guilty like that. And I don't think it's so much as they turn their back on you. I think it's just life, man. It's just life. You know, life keeps on going out here, and for the ones that that they start having a family out here and kind of leave it early on. You know, they're the ones that kind of get out of the way, and they were smarter, you know. And in my situation, it was time after time after time after time again, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I asked first-hand experience, man.
Right.
First-hand experience, man. So a lot of your tats, you're all tatted up, and we'll show more later, man. Did most of those get in the joint, or were they out here?
I got them all in the joint.
All, even the head?
Even the head.
Head tattoos?
Yeah.
Right on.
Everything I got in the joint except when I got out here, I got my wife's name with her beautiful lips. I got the praying hands. And I got my Nana rest in peace on my neck right here in yellow. But the rest, they were all done in the joint. You know, when I went to the joint, I did a good stretch. You know, I did like I said, I went with 17, then it got modified to 12. With already, they gave me 2 years credit, so I had 10, and I did the whole 10. I did from 2005, and I got out in 2015.
So I'm sure during this time you ran into people from your hood, you know, right here and there, you know, probably even if in passing, but you also probably ran into people from the enemies. Is it the case that people on the streets could be your enemies, and then in there you guys get tight?
That's exactly what it is, and I mean, looking at it now, it's like, wow, it's crazy. It really is crazy. It really is a 360 to where you do a 360. Everybody knows what a 360 is. You turn around, and with this game here, you get lost because you do the 360 and you're like, wait, what just happened? You know, you're out here on the streets putting in work, you know, and and I know how it is. Like I said, I know how it is to run up on somebody, to jump somebody, to try to take someone's life, and the whole 9 yards, not knowing what's in store later. You know, when I went to the joint, one of the first rules that were very strict is nothing from the streets comes in here. Okay, so you're like, all right, it kind of makes sense. The Raza united as one, okay. But it goes further than that, because when you're from the city that you're from, you have things in common with the people that are from your city. Enemies are not. And you might tiptoe to it, at first, like, I don't even, when you're in that life, I don't trust this vato, I don't know, but, you know, that dude is considered your homie now, who was once considered your rival enemy out here on the streets is now that's considered your homeboy to other people that are not from your city or from your county. Like somebody from I don't know, say LA, two dudes from the Habra, right? Not knowing that one's from the west side and one's from the Monos. To him, it's just that you guys are homeboys because of you guys from the same city. And that's what I'm talking about as a 360, because out here when you're young, you're taught that that is your enemy, and he's gonna kill you if you don't kill him, or if you don't hurt him, he's gonna hurt you, or whatever the case may be. And once you go to the joint, it's a hands-off policy, and that guy is and gonna end up being your friend. And most likely, if you guys are not deep on the yard, that's gonna be your celly. That's gonna be the guy that you live with. You know, if you guys get real close, and that's what is a trip to me, is that, you know, it's like, if, man, if only people would learn before, you know, they would have to learn the hard way, and basically throw their life away over, man, over nothing. It's a trip, man, and it's very sad. You know, one of those things that I wish it was out there more. I wish the little homies, you know, when I say the little homies, I don't mean just from my neighborhood. I mean from all the neighborhoods. You know, that if only they would know of what's in the future for them if they continue this life. You know, because it's crazy. It's a trip. It's a total 360, and you know, you can't wrap your head around it once you're in it. You know, because I do have a lot of homeboys that are doing life. You know, um, and I ran into a lot of people from the enemy's neighborhoods that are doing life, and I'll tell you this: they are cool. They're they're cool, man. They are good people. They're cool people, and you're like, man, what a trip. You know, what a trip. It's just that line in the sand. It gets, you know, for what? That line in the sand, man. That line on the street.
Yeah. For before I got two more things before we get on to what really important. During the time of your time, I know La Habra was pretty much ran by old man Pete Ojeda Sana. Did you ever have dealings with him, or did you ever hear of him or see him around La Habra when he was living here?
I heard of him a lot. I've heard of him a lot, but I didn't see him because when the time when he was living in La Habra, I was busted.
Yeah.
I was busted, yeah.
Yeah, and then you know, he just died a few years ago. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Pete. Love him or hate him, man. God wanted him, and hopefully he made his peace with God. Number two, in La Habra, you got a lot of homies who are doing life for killing blacks. You know, in La Habra, there's a few from a lot of the different gangs. So they're doing life, they're doing all day, and now you see some of the homies from La Habra like hanging out with blacks and stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of like, man, bro, is that ugly or what? What do you think?
It just is all the way around. I think the hate is ugly, you know, because I'll tell you this. I'll give myself up on one of these. One of the robberies that I went, that I was fighting my case for, was for a black dude. And I was walking up on the street one day, and I see, you know, two black dudes, one of them with long dreads, and I'm like, and I had my homeboy with me, and I'm fresh out of YA. You know, he got out of YA earlier, and I'm like, hey, what's this about? He's like, man, I don't know. And, you know, that's why I did what I did, you know, and that was one of my cases. And I did it solely because of you know, because first of all, it was foreign to me, right? And just because the thought that I thought I had, you know, the hate that I thought I had, and you know, so when you say, you know, a lot of people are doing time for racial, you know, I was one of them. I was one of them. And
yeah, and La Habra is very well known. I think out of all Orange County, La Habra was the one where you can't be African American and live here.
right,
You know, it was one of those. There was some in LA too, but here was a very racial city. You know, and I'm sure it's still a little, but I don't think like it was, because I see the people who used to hate blacks kicking it with blacks, and
Right.
you know, so something's changed, and unfortunately, these guys who were friends of yours, or we could even say ours,
right.
they're doing life, and it's sad, brother. But something happened to you, bro. You changed your life.
I did.
Something happened. Let's get to the start from how, you know, just the beginnings of that, and how it is, and then go on to where you are now.
Okay, so I already took you guys through the journey of when I got out of the joint from doing my little stretch in 2015. Well, like I said, the gap in between me getting busted again, it continued. You know, I was only out for a couple months after I did that stretch. I went back in 2015 for a pocket knife. Yeah, pocket knife, right? They consider me armed and dangerous, and you know how they do it. They beef it up. They take one charge and they just make it, rah, right? And that's just their get down, right? That's what they wanted to do to me. So I ended up signing a deal for 32 months for a pocket knife to go back to the joint. And I came back out in July of 2017. I got back out in July 10th of 2017. And like I said, when I got out in 2015, nothing really changed either. I would go like, and I would go to church and I would go to these different things just to try to dabble in it, to try to see what's on the other side. The white picket fence, right? Because we all want that good life. We all want what's good for our lives. It's just that sometimes we don't know how to get there. And there's a song, there's a Christian song that goes, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have met you halfway. Basically, he's telling God, like you came all the way here and met me where I'm at, because even even on the bridge, I wouldn't have met you halfway because I don't even know how. I don't even know where to start. So I continued my using. I was doing heroin and speed. Shooting it up, just getting wild and crazy, and just running the streets and continuing to do, to throw my life away. And I just thought that was just gonna be my life. I would get busted. I would be like these old timers coming out of the joint that are 50, 60, whatever, however old, and just keep on going back and forth. If not, just get life. And I was kind of okay with that because that's the way I lived my life already. So I wasn't. I mean, no one wants to do life in prison, of course. And shout out to all the homies and everybody that is doing life in prison. Keep your hope alive. But I didn't really mind it. Didn't really like, if that was the route I was going. It was just gonna happen. So I came back out here from the last time I got out of prison, and I just kept on running around, running around. I would get warnings from everybody. By this time, my wife changed her life, my brother changed her life, my mom changed her life. My dad changed somewhat. So everybody around me was changing, and I'm still thinking in 2015, 2017 that it was 1995 again, and it wasn't, right? It wasn't. I kind of got stuck there, and it wasn't. And I continued doing the same things that I was doing back then. And I I would try different things. I even tried. I was in Temecula. I was in Paris, city of Temecula. I even went to LA for a short period of time, hooked up with Homeboy Industries, worked with them, and I just kind of bounced around, just trying different things to try to see where can I get in at, where can I be good at without sticking the needle in my arm, or just having that notion of wanting to run with the homies in the streets. Where can I find my piece at, basically, so to speak. And and basically I kept on doing the same old thing. And in March of 2018, I found myself in the hospital. And this is where it turned right here, because I end up in the hospital, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know I was in the hospital. um, I found myself in the hospital with a blood clot in my leg from from using dope, from shooting dope. And I guess it formed in my leg a blood clot. And the pad that I was at, the dude was a heaven sent too, because I'm at his pad using, right. He didn't use, but his family members did. he was just like a stoner or whatever, right? But he saw I was in bad shape, and he kind of went through my phone when I was unconscious, and he called my mom, right? Out of all people, I mean, who does that, right? Who does that? First of all, who you see some dude in your pad, and you see what type of shape he's in, what kind of guy goes through your phone and calls your mom, right? Um, well, I'll tell you what type of guy that dude was. He saved my life, right? He saved my life. I can honestly say that guy saved my life. He called my mom, and my mom went down there to the pad I was at, and like I said, I was unconscious during this whole time. They rushed me in the ambulance to the hospital, and they went to go check out my leg. The doctors did, went to go check it out. I guess I was on the gurney. They went to go check out my leg, and I had so much poison in my leg that it poisoned my heart and it poisoned my body, and I flatlined. I died 3 different times, and um, they brought me back twice, and then their third time, I guess I was out. I was dead for 10 minutes. I had no heartbeat. Luckily, I was in the hospital, so they were able to work on me. And after 10 minutes, they brought me back. They brought me back alive, and I had a heartbeat, and and they rushed me to. I guess they rushed me to kind of get prepped for surgery. Um, they put me in a different gurney or whatever, and they still had to cut my leg off, right? My leg was no good no more, so they had to put my leg on dry ice until it was time for them to cut it off. So I slipped into a coma for about a month, and that's when they did the surgery. They cut off my leg above the knee on my right leg, and I was in a coma. So when I would be in and out of the coma, I would tell my wife and my family, to take off the blindfold because I want to see my leg. Why wouldn't they want me to see my leg? Why are they blindfolding me and not letting me see my leg? I could take it. I'm a big boy. I'm a man, right? This is what I'm thinking the whole time, but without being able to voice that because they got me drugged up on some Michael Jackson juice, the propofol, fentanyl, everything, right? And I'm steadily asking to take the blindfold off, and my family's like, "What are you talking about?" And so I come out of the coma about a month later, and my brother, he was the one to break it to me. Well, I guess they went to go tell the doctor, like, "Hey, he's saying he has a blindfold on," and I couldn't check. I couldn't check myself, like to try to take the blindfold, because they had my hands bandaged and they had them strapped down to the gurney with zip ties, because I kept on getting the what's it called, the breathing tube and the feeding tube, and I'll rip it out subconsciously, not on purpose, just subconsciously, right? And it was messing up my voice box, so they had to strap my hands down. So when the doctor came and he looked into my eyes, they found out I was blind, and just to make sure I had to do an MRI. And so yeah, so I woke up in the hospital about a month later. I woke up blind, and I woke up without a leg, right? I woke up with my leg amputated. But one thing has changed in my heart and in my brain. All my family was, during this whole time I was in the coma, they were steadily asking each other, like, man, he's going to wake up mad. He's going to wake up this. Because I went in a bad state. I went in using, I went in mad at the world. I went in, mad at my wife, for my own faults, mad at my family for my own faults, and just thinking that it's everybody else's fault, and it was nobody but mine. But something did change, during that time in the hospital. And what did change is that I woke up with a different spirit. I woke up with a different attitude. I woke up with hope in my life. I woke up with a peace and a joy that is not even explainable. That it shouldn't have happened the way it did. As far as me being at peace. I'm waking up helpless. Blind. Can't even go use the restroom on my own. And but for some reason I have this hope, I have this joy, I have this peace in my life. And during this whole time, when I got out the 2 times, and everybody around me was going to church. My brother got saved, like I said. My mom had gotten saved. My dad, was in the men's home. My wife was now saved. And and everybody else was leading for me, but I didn't know how to do it for myself because I was stuck in my ways. And when I woke up from the coma, I woke up, I did truly believe, honestly, that I knew that there was a God, and I know that He saved my life, and I knew that my life was never going to be the same. Not because now I'm blind and with no leg, but I knew that all the things that I was doing, well, I'm not going to be that person no more. And not because that's what I wanted at the time. I wanted to write out, me being a fool and who I was, but God didn't want that for me, and God didn't want that for my life. And now, looking back at it, God was giving me plenty of chances to be like, you know what? Okay, God, let me try it your way, For instance, I OD'd. I kept on ODing. I was falling out in restrooms, at businesses, food for less restroom, an AM PM restroom, and people would always, um, call the ambulances and come to my rescue. And I got busted a couple times in LA County, and they would let me right back out. And as you guys already see from my past record, I was never the type to get busted and get let out, And so those were different signs that God was trying to put in front of my life. Like He was trying to get the big old red sign and be like, stop, 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 And I didn't listen. And during those times, that I got out, I did try church. I went to church, but I would go on drugs. I would slam an issue in the restroom and go into church. And towards the end, I started feeling tormented at church. I would hear voices, and I would hear, when the worship and the music would come on, I would hear voices. I would really righteously hear voices, and I would hear like um, groans and pains and evil and all kind of torment, and I would just be there like, what is going on? Trying to play it off cool because I didn't want my wife to check me out that I'm tripping in church, and I would hear, during the service, I would hear people behind me be like, "Hey, homie, get out of there! That's not even your scene, Get out of here! Who are you trying to fool?" But I'll tell you right now that God loves us no matter what, and I'll tell you right now that God loves us if with even though He don't want us to keep on going down the destructive path that we are going. If that's the way He has to get your attention, He will. So um, those were the signs that wasn't fortunate enough to get, but he got a hold of me now. He got a hold of me now, and I will be honest and tell you that my life has never been the same. I haven't been back to prison. I haven't been back on dope. I live a good life now. Live a good life with me and my wife. I don't make my wife mad, as much now. But my life, I'm living a righteously a good life. Do we have bad days? Yes, during this whole COVID thing, and um, whatever's going on in the world, yeah, problems arise. But God has put a joy in my heart and a song in my heart that is unfathomable. You know what I'm saying? And that's the honest truth. And um, you know, people that see this and people that know me and people that were in the joint with me, they're gonna be blown away. And I'm doing it for you guys. I'm doing it for you guys, and I'm doing it, to show you guys that God is real and that there's a different way. There's a different way. All you have to do is give Him a chance.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it, bro. And I know because I hear people from your church talk about you, like Avetta Estrada and different others, man. I know a lot of people from your church, and it's good, man. Let me ask you one thing. We're almost getting to the end. What is that? Do you remember the minute, hour, or when you officially laid it down? You know, like said, "Hey, Lord, that's it. I'm done," or was it a process?
No, it was March 4th. The day I died was March 4th, and I March 4th of 2018, and it wasn't so much of saying that's it, Lord. It was more of a like it already happened without me even knowing it type of thing. And now vowing to God, like as much as I was a soldier for everything else in this world, I'm a soldier for you now, and if you want me to go talk to kids, I'm gonna go talk to kids. If you want me to go talk to tecatos, I'm gonna go talk to tecatos. If you want me to go, speak with the LA Times, I'm gonna go speak for the LA Times. If you whatever you want me to do, Lord, I'm here and I'm with you, you know, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Want to know what are you doing now? How's God using your life now?
It's it's God's using my life as just, kind of like a poster board. When you see me, walking, or actually I say limping down the street, you think something else, but once you come and talk to me, it's whoa. It's a refreshing in God's eyes, because I get it all the time. I'll be somewhere at a store, wherever I'm at, and I'll hear people, and they'll put a little bit too much on the cussing or on the slang, and I'm like, and it just trips me out, like, orale, okay. But then, once they, hey homie, what's up, and I speak with a different attitude now, then they're like, oh yeah, I've been to church, So I think that that's what it is right now. But I have been to the juvenile hall. When the COVID wasn't up, I have been to the juvenile halls. In that ministry, there's a ministry called Sunburst Youth Academy in Los Alamitos. It's for at-risk youth. We go every Sunday. My mom's a chaplain there, and I just try to speak life, man. Just try to speak life into everybody, and try to tell them, like, look, there's another way. But I understand for the tercos out there, for the hard heads out there, because I was one of them, and I understand. But um, you know, it's gonna come to a point where you know it's either you get showed the brick wall in front of you, or you hit it head on. And unfortunately, I had to hit it head on. But I will say it was the best day of my life when I did hit that brick wall, head on. And this had to happen to me in order to live the life that I'm living now. Even though I'm blind, even though I have a prosthetic leg, all that, it doesn't matter to me. It's just life on an everyday basis now. I'm not waking up in a prison cell. Paul, that when prison becomes a part of your life, it becomes a part of your life. And it's a everyday thing, month after month, a year after year. And that becomes your life. And for these past few years, it hasn't been a part of my life, and it's a trip that it doesn't have to be a part of my life no more. And so that's how God's using me wherever. I speak at different churches, wherever I'm asked. Basically, wherever I'm asked, I'm like, let's go, let's do it, because I know that in any other setting in my life where anybody even insinuated on, hey fool, let's go do this, let's go, what's up, what's cracking, I'm there. So I try to use that same aspect in how I'm living today, because I don't think God wants us to change the core of us. The core of us is what makes us tick and what makes us different than everybody else. The core of us is, now that I made a vow to the Lord, like, wherever you need me, I'm there. And He doesn't want us to, now that we gave our lives to the Lord, He doesn't want us to shrivel up and become weak or soft, or however it is. You know what I'm saying? He wants us to have that same ambitiousness and the same tenacity and to reach the hurting and people of the world, and that just need a simple, hey homie, God could turn your life around, you know.
Yeah, yeah, you're a great example, man. I've been hearing a lot of good things. I want you to do one thing before we close. So people are going to watch this all over the world, obviously, through LA Times. But there's going to be some people. There's going to be some people from West Side La Habra, from the Peewees, from the Enanos, from the Grandes, from the Chicos, from the Tiny Locos, from the Little Enanos, from the Chiquitas, from the Monos, from the Campo, from Ward Street, on and on to all these new ones, bro.
Right.
To the East Side La Habra, watching this. To La Jolla, to the Mad Ones, to all of them. What do you have to say to them now? What would be your words to them now?
In a sense, it's all I gotta say is look around. If you're my age or a little bit younger, or a little bit older, it's not there no more. It's not there no more. And what I try to express, to the homies is that you don't have to, straight up like walk away, turn your back, throw the paño down or wherever. However you look at it is like you're ranking out on the neighborhood. You don't have to do that. That's what I try to express. It's just that, now we're in a different life, man. We're in 2021. Look at the streets. Is it filled with cholos and gang members? No, it's not. It's not. Is everybody smoking dope and being hermits inside of the pad? Yeah, that's the get down now. And what I gotta say is to everybody out there is that I love you. I love you, homies. It's just that we need to come together now, and rise up as God wants us to rise up as a people of, we could do better in this life. There's a lot more out there to life than just staying in our own comfort zone, And the same way you guys, I'm talking, to the homies, that you wouldn't want your kids going through that lifestyle. If you guys have been to prison or if you guys been, doing dope or however it is, you guys don't want your kids going through that. So I say let's bond together, with God and try to teach these kids of today. Try to teach them before they even have to go through the dirt. Say get wrung through the mud. That's what I gotta say in that, and that God loves you and that I love you, and that you don't have to turn your back on no neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? I'm both feet first, telling the neighborhood, I love you guys, as well as my enemies. I love you guys. You know what I'm saying? Let's stop killing each other. Let's stop hurting each other, putting poison into each other's arms, and let's rise up as a people.
Cool. And my last, I have four more people. Four more people I want to bring up, and you tell me your first thoughts when it comes to them. All right. Firstly, and say his name. I know him. Your pastor. Tell me a couple of sentences what you think about him.
Pastor Bob Nixon, love, um, unconditional love. Those are the best words that I have for my pastor.
Fullerton, California. Look him up.
New Wine Church.
New Wine Church. I'm gonna bring a couple more people. Bogart from Santana F Troop.
Good homie right there. OG homie that has his mind straight now. The Lord has saved his life, and he comes from a life, the same way. And if you're from Orange County, then you've heard of his name, plenty of times. And that man is a man of God, a real righteous man of God.
Yvette Estrada.
Homegirl. That's what I always call her, at church. That's the homegirl. She's from La Habra too, and knowing her background too, God has gave her grace. God has gave her favor, in everything that she's doing today, and she's a good role model for the women.
Your wife.
My wife. My wife is love. My wife is unconditional love as well. Me and my wife, I met my wife, back in the early 90s as well. And, you know, she doesn't like me saying it because it just sounds wrong, but she was actually my first drug connection. And that's how God brought us together all the way back then that we didn't even know it, and growing up, she was always one of the ones that I wanted to be with, and for some reason or another, she never gave me a chance um, until 2005. And at that time, we were both doing bad as well. We were both on dope, both running the streets. And when I went to the joint and I came back out, she was the first one that I wanted to be with, and just seeing how God had changed her life and how she's sober now, you know, um, she's a completely different woman, and she's my rock, and she's, the yeah, she's the woman that I see and have always seen, in my future.
That's cool. And then we have two more. One is a vato from your neighborhood. What was his reputation then, and what do you know about him now? I heard he's a big chavala, thumper from La Habra.
That's the homie. He's a man of God now, and he's just trying to spread, the love, and try to show everybody the way, the God's way, and I give him props. I take my hat off to him for doing God's work, being a soldier for the Lord now.
And most importantly, lastly, and not least, above all, Jesus Christ. What's Jesus Christ to you?
Jesus Christ is my Lord and my Savior. He's the one that turned me, from I don't deserve to be alive. I don't deserve to be out of prison. I don't deserve the many chances that he has given me. And for him to give me this chance, all over again, he's the one looking over me. He's the one that has my back, and I didn't even know it. He had my back, and he's always had my back, and he has yours too. Everybody out there, all you got to do is give him a chance. And like I said, don't be ashamed if you're not right with him right now, or if you're running the streets and going through your own torment on drugs, however it is. God still loves you where you're at. All you have to do is cry out to him, and just talk to him like you're a 5-year-old kid. Talk to him in plain English, and he hears, he listens.
Yeah. Again, everybody, this is going to conclude this interview. We thank you, Mike, for coming out. We thank you for your wife coming out. Again, an invitation goes out to New Wine Church in Fullerton. Come over there. What day do you guys meet?
We meet, there's something going on right there every day of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7 p.m. But we meet on Sundays at 10 o'clock, Sunday service. Be there. I'll see you there. Check me out because I can't check you out.
Okay, man. Is there anywhere they can follow you if they want to get a hold of you for prayer, or how do they get a hold of you, man?
Just through New Wine Church, through the Facebook New Wine Church.
All right. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Seek the Lord while he may be found. This is LA Times signing out.